In a country like India, where nearly 70% of the population depend on agriculture for sustenance, changes in the agriculture and food production sector can be factors that significantly determine the livelihood security of a large majority. The first half of the 20th century was witness to a situation of serious disparity between the demand for food by the population and availability, first in colonial India and then in independent India. The Green Revolution in the late 1960s countered this, and the country which had been dependent on food grain imports under the PL 480 scheme from 1956 witnessed in the span of a decade a doubling of production and a status of self-sufficiency. Despite the surge in food production and a situation of food surplus, however, issues related to food availability and access prevailed in many pockets across the country.
When you have large number of grains, it certainly, Green Revolution did one thing. It built the food security at the national level, but not at the individual household level. For example, you can have mountains of grains, but at the same time, millions of hungry people on the other hand. Why is it? You know, if your country has so much of grains, why should there be any hungry person at all? The reason was that these people didn't have money. So the paradox at the time was mountains of grains on one hand and millions of hungry people on the other hand. So how do you combat it? This again it occupied Professor Swaminathan's thoughts. He started, no, we have to develop a strategy.
It's hard to imagine that situation today. Even today there is a crisis of agriculture and a crisis of livelihood, but it was a different kind of crisis in the 1980s when the foundation came into being. And I think he assembled a very good team because of his the tremendous respect and even reverence with which he was held among agricultural scientists and policy makers, also in government circles, not just in India but in various countries, including China, I remember.
From its inception in 1988 and over the past 30 years, the programs of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, or MSSRF in short, has reflected its commitment to realize the vision of Professor MS Swaminathan for a hunger-free India. Over the years, the foundation has engaged in mapping the food security situation in the country and demonstrating models of community food grain banks in tribal pockets to alleviate seasonal hunger. From mid-2013 to early 2018, the foundation conducted a study in Koraput, Odisha and Wardha, Maharashtra to demonstrate the feasibility of a farming systems approach to address the problem of undernutrition by improving dietary diversity at the household level. Leveraging agriculture for nutrition and advocacy of a farming system for nutrition or FSN approach is today a core component of MSSRF's food security initiatives.
Over the last few years, we have developed the model of what is called farming systems for nutrition, and in different parts of the country we would like to expand this and take it forward and develop cropping systems which are good for both the soil and for animals and for humans. So taking the entire, from not just one crop specific research, but taking crop, livelihood, fisheries, all of them in a combined way.
The interventions under the FSN design included promotion of nutrient-dense crops like millets and pulses and nutrition garden of vegetables and fruits, accompanied by nutrition awareness.
Under food security, our major work has been desk-based research in terms of understanding the ground situation through data. So mapping the food security situation in the country. We've produced a series of reports on the state of food insecurity in India. This was a decade-long partnership that we had with the UN World Food Programme. We've also had done action research in terms of promoting community food grain banks in tribal pockets, especially in Koraput in Orissa.
MSSRF, through its work, endeavours to demonstrate household-level livelihood and food and nutrition security of rural populations. Promotion of safe drinking water and sanitation also feature among the initiatives. Since WASH, water, sanitation and hygiene is of critical importance in absorption of nutrients by the body and in building resistance to disease.
आमर गाम बेसी असुविधा रहला पानी बेसी असुविधा रहला आमी बंदर पानी कायतेरु कुसालर पानी कायतेरु कादो पानी एबे नाई कि से स्वामीनाथन हैला तीन तानो पानी मिसा बोलेला हमर पाइप लगाइ देलाई लेटिन फुटिन जेबा के मिसा कि पिलाटो की स्कूल पानी दरी कर जेबा के मिसा खाइबा के बोलटा खाइलाइनी रोग फोग मिसा एबे नाई आगे तो खादो पानी गादाई करी सब कुंडियानी असमने तेरला एटा मन कसु हैतेरला गाय हैतेरला रोग हैतेरला सिटा मन एबे नाई ए पानी हैला दिन तान बोलाका खाइबा के सब सुविधा हैला गोरु गाय मिसा बंदे जाई करी एबे पानी मिसा सुविधा लागिने गोरु गाय मिसा सब पियापी करबा के बोलेलानी पानी के असुविधा नाई एबे.
Another very key one has been an initiative called the Community Hunger Fighters in order to address this nutrition, mainly malnutrition problem and its links with hunger and agriculture. How can agriculture contribute towards dealing with undernutrition and malnutrition?
Towards building capacity at the community level, men and women selected by village members undergo training to be community hunger fighters or community nutrition resource persons to impart nutrition awareness. The program was first piloted as an action education model to address malnutrition in 18 hamlets across 2 blocks of Koraput district in Odisha from 2011 to 2012. A pro-poor and pro-woman approach is an underlying ethos in all of MSSRF's initiatives with gender mainstreaming and an inclusive approach cross-cutting across all community-level initiatives. Starting work in Vidarbha, Maharashtra with children and widows of farmers who committed suicide in 2006, MSSRF went on to organize women farmers into groups. This sowed the seeds for what is now a national program, the Mahila Kisan Sashaktikaran Pariyojana.
It was Dr. M.S. Swaminathan who at the earliest point in time saw the importance of coastal research. We have probably amongst the Southeast Asian countries the longest coastline in this part of the world. And this coastline is largely going unattended, unaddressed and unlooked after.
Coastal systems research focusing on sustainable management of coastal resources along the country's long coastline of 7,500 kilometers has been a core program area of MSSRF right from the beginning. Rejuvenation and restoration of mangrove forests in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Maharashtra and protecting their genetic diversity through participatory management are prime components of the program. The impact of this work was clearly seen during the tsunami in December 2004, with the restored mangrove forests along the Tamil Nadu coast forming a natural barrier against the strong waves. Revival of coral reefs and seagrass beds to enhance the availability of fishery resources and promotion of on-farm and non-farm activities in the coastal belt is allied to this.
So here I think is what is unique about MSSRF. We have very good national research institutes which deal with fisheries, others deal with certain crops which can be grown in saline areas. There are other institutions dealing with economics of fisher people. But in MSSRF we have taken the entire coastal area as one.
26/12/2004 ஞாயிற்றுக்கிழமை அன்னைக்கு அங்கே போயிட்டு வந்தேன்னா டான்னு சத்தம் கேட்டுது. என்னன்னு கேட்குறேன். கடல் கொந்தளிக்குது, ஒரு மாதிரியே இருக்கு.
Meet Mrs. Kala. She suffered tremendous loss and destruction to property in the 2004 tsunami that badly affected South India. Currently, she works with the MSSRF Fish for All Research and Training Center in Kaveri Pumpattinam.
பாதி பொருள் எல்லாம் வெளியே எங்கே தான் போணுச்சுன்னே தெரியல இந்த சுனாமி அடிச்சதுனால.
In the aftermath of the 2004 tsunami, the foundation decided to set up a Fish for All center at Kaveri Pumpattinam. The center that became operational in 2007 works with the coastal communities in Nagapattinam and Karaikal districts to promote sustainable livelihoods. The capacity of the 132 women members of the Winmean Mahalir Fish and Fish Products Producers Association has been strengthened in the procurement, processing and marketing of fish products. The coastal communities and fisherwomen associated with the center have also come forward to devise innovative systems like integrated fish farming systems and community pond fish culture that are functioning well. ICT tools are effectively used through a network of village resource centers and village knowledge centers located along the coast to provide need-based information ranging from weather conditions and accessing government entitlements to fish harvesting, processing, enterprise development and marketing.
The capture fisheries development la இன்னொரு முக்கியமான ஒரு விஷயம் அப்படினு சொல்லிட்டு பாக்கும்போது தான் நம்ம இந்த fisher friend mobile application அப்படிங்கற ஒரு Android based application. So இந்த application வந்து இப்போதைக்கு ஒரு 9 லாங்குவேஜ்ல நம்ம பண்ணியிருக்கோம். இது வந்து Google Play Storeலயும் அவேலபிளா இருக்கு. இன்னைக்கு பார்த்தோம்னா ஒரு 30,000 people வந்து fisher people across 7 states வந்து அதை யூஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. So இது மூலமா என்னன்னாக்கா மீனவர்களுக்கு தேவையான இன்ஃபர்மேஷன், அதாவது பார்த்தோம் அப்படினாக்கா வந்து ஓஷன் ஸ்டேட் இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் வந்து வேவ் ஹைட், விண்ட் ஸ்பீடு, சீ கரண்ட், சீ சர்ஃபேஸ் டெம்பரேச்சர், மீன் எங்கே கிடைக்கும், பொட்டன்ஷியல் ஃபிஷிங் ஜோன். அதுக்கடுத்து இவங்க நிறைய சின்ன ஃபிஷர்மேனுக்கு வந்து ஜிபிஎஸ் ஃபெசிலிட்டிலாம் இருக்காது. இப்போ ஜிபிஎஸ் ஃபெசிலிட்டி இல்லை அப்படின்னாக்கா என்ன கடலில் வந்து எங்கே மீன் கிடைக்கும் அந்த இடத்த வந்து அவங்களால பதிவு பண்ணி வச்சு திரும்ப அந்த இடத்துக்கு போக முடியாது. அதே மாதிரி ஏதாவது ஒரு டேஞ்சர் ஜோன் கடலில் இருக்குது அப்படின்னா அந்த டேஞ்சர் ஜோனை வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் அதை வந்து மார்க் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கிட்டு அந்த ஜோனை வந்து அவாய்ட் பண்ணலாம் ஃபிஷிங் பண்ணுறப்ப. அது மாதிரி இன்டர்நேஷ்னல் பார்டர் லைன் அலர்ட் அப்படிங்கிற ஸ்ரீலங்கா இந்தியாவுக்கு அந்த அலர்ட், இந்த சிஸ்டம்லாம் அந்த அப்ளிகேஷன் மூலமாக நம்ம கொடுக்குறோம்.
Aspiring to render a modern approach to marine resource enhancement and sustainable fisheries by small fishers, MSSRF has conceived of various components. The setting up of an artificial reef in Karaikal, launched in 2018 with support from the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, NABARD, is one such example.
ஒரு மீனவன் இந்த கடற்கரை பகுதியில் விசைப்படகு அதிகமாக இழுவை வலை பயன்படுத்துவதால் இயற்கையான பவளப்பாறைகள் அழிந்துவிட்டது. அதை நாங்கள் பவளப்பாறை அழிவதால் மீன்வளம் அதிகமாக குறைவு என்று சொல்லி நாங்கள் MS சுவாமி ஆராய்ச்சி நிறுவனத்திடம் இந்த கோரிக்கை வைத்தோம். இயற்கை பாறை பவளப்பாறை அழிந்துவிட்டால் செயற்கை பாறையை உருவாக்கி கொடுக்க வேண்டும், அதுக்கு என்ன வழி என்று கேட்கும்போது அவங்க சொன்னாங்க, நாங்கள் நவார்டு வங்கியில் பேசி உங்களுக்கு ஒரு செயற்கையான பவளப்பாறை உருவாக்க சொன்னாங்க.
In Kerala, MSSRF facilitated recognition of the below sea level farming system of Kuttanad as a globally important agricultural heritage system by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 2012. The foundation has prepared a detailed eco-development plan for an international research and training center for below sea level farming based out of Kuttanad. The Kuttanad region is one of the few places in the world where farming is carried around 1.2 to 3 meters below sea level. It is in this place of resplendent beauty, harboring one of the distinctive ecosystems in the world, that Mangombe, the birthplace of Mangombe Sambashivan Swaminathan, the founder of MSSRF, is located. The intellectual seed for giving shape to an organization harnessing science for sustainable development was planted in the mind of Professor M.S. Swaminathan by the Nobel laureate Professor C.V. Raman in the beginning of the 1970s. The World Food Prize that was bestowed on Professor Swaminathan in 1987 proved a catalyst in converting his ideas to reality. The foundation was registered as a not-for-profit trust in New Delhi in 1988 with Professor M.S. Swaminathan, Dr. V.K. Ramachandran and Professor V.L. Chopra as the first trustees.
Today, a woman's life is so demeaned, so devalued. To kill the child.
Professor Swaminathan's wife, Mrs. Meena Swaminathan, an educationist with a deep passion for early childhood education, theatre, communication and gender mainstreaming, engaged actively in the early years in framing the priority areas and foundational values of MSSRF.
The MS Swaminathan Research Foundation was started to fill gaps in ongoing work. As I mentioned, it was not the idea to start one more institution. The idea was what was missing in the government institution was there was no pro-poor, pro-woman, pro-nature orientation. Ecological sustainability, environmental soundness, improvement, conservation of biodiversity, and a pro-woman attitude to agriculture. The idea was not only do some research, but research which is meaningful to the small farmer and woman, and also research which can have a catalytic effect, it can have a multiplier effect.
உங்களுக்கு இங்க வந்திருக்க யாருக்காகும் நாங்க அப்படி ஒரு தொழிலை எடுத்து செய்யறோம்னு ஆர்வம் இருக்காதுங்களா?
In all aspects of the work of MSSRF, there is attention to encompass gender mainstreaming and integration of the unreached. There are also projects with an explicit gender focus, like initiatives for the empowerment of widows of farmers who committed suicide and single women farmers, social and ecological rationale for conservation of paddy land and wetlands in Kerala, where women play a primary role, and the gender dimension in the political economy of energy sector dynamics.
Gender was one of the key mandates of MSSRF. So one of the people who started the gender program at MSSRF was my mother, Mrs. Meena Swaminathan, and she had been working for a very long time on the issue of women's rights, equal rights, both in terms of recognition of women as workers, but also giving support to women in the task of bringing up their children, improving nutrition, and so on.
The JRD Tata Eco-Technology Centre was established at the foundation in 1988 with endowment support from the Tata Trusts to demonstrate sustainable livelihood models with a pro-nature, pro-woman and pro-poor approach. The activity centers under this program area are located along specific geographic and climatic zones such as coastal, semi-arid, and hill regions.
So based on the context, we identify the key issues. For the key issues, we develop the strategies to address it and develop it as a kind of a model or a kind of a methodology. That innovation depends upon the context. And in case of arid ecosystems, the main issues are climate change, which is affecting the crop production to an extent. Mainly the change in the rainfall pattern plays a major role in deciding the production. But in case of semi-arid as well as the irrigated ecosystems, the change in the soil health, which is a kind of a key for agriculture production, that is the main challenge. And in case of coastal agroecosystems, where the climate as well as the soil plays a major role, and importance was given for improving water use efficiency as well as diversification of production systems.
The successful setting up of grassroots institutions in the field sites with respect to pulses, milk, organic vegetables, tamarind, and other crops have been instrumental in uplifting the farming scenario in these areas. In Puducherry, which falls in coastal zone, 270 self-help groups with 2,826 members from across 56 villages have been federated into a registered organization called Innuir Grama Sangam IGS.
ஸ்டார்டிங்கில் எனக்கு கல்யாணம் பண்ணி கொடுத்ததுமே எனக்கு அவர் சம்பளம் மட்டும்தான். நான் கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமாகவே இருந்தேன். இப்போதைக்கு 2 பேர் சம்பாதிச்சாதான்ற கண்டிஷன் போயின்னு இருக்குது. அப்போதைக்கு நான் வீட்டில் இருக்க எனக்கு பிடிக்கல. நம்ம கையில் தொழில் வச்சுருக்கோம், நம்ம பண்ணலான்ற ஒரு ஐடியாவில் நான் இவர்கிட்ட கேட்டேன். ஊன்னு சொன்னார். சரி பண்ணலாம் சொன்னார். அதை செஞ்சதுனால நான் நல்லாவே இருக்கேன். தனியாக வீடு கட்டியிருக்கேன், மண் வாங்கியிருக்கேன். இந்த கம்பெனியை சொந்தமாக நிர்வாகம் பண்ணுறேன், சொந்தமாக கட்டினேன். அது கட்டுறப்பெல்லாம் ₹1 கூட இது கிடையாது. இது உதவி பண்ணதுனால தான், இது சாமிநாதன் ஃபவுண்டேஷனில் கொஞ்சம் உதவி பண்ணதுனால கொஞ்சம் நல்லா பண்ணுறேன் நான்.
Training sessions on entrepreneurship are organized for enabling the members to take up additional economic activities such as vegetable and flower cultivation, dairy, calf rearing, goatery, poultry, and coir making. In 2016, Pasumai Farmer Producer Company Limited was registered representing 31 groups in Mannadipet community in Puducherry. The Kulumai, a federation of 243 female and male producer groups from 68 hamlets in Reddiyar Chatram block of Dindigal district in the semi-arid region of Tamil Nadu, was registered in 2007. Small-scale dairy and bio-inputs production are emerging as viable enterprise models for on-farm and off-farm livelihood in the area.
இன்றைக்கி சூழ்நிலையில் வந்து இயற்கை வந்து ரொம்ப கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு 6-7 ஆண்டுகளாக உருப்படியாக மழை பெய்யலைன்னா கூட எங்கள் கிணறுல ஊறுற தண்ணி பார்த்திங்கன்னா ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு 1500-2000 லிட்ரு ஒரு பெரிய குடும்பத்தில் செலவழிச்சுருவாங்க. அந்த தண்ணியை வச்சு தான் நான் இன்றைக்கி விவசாயம் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கேன். காரணம் வந்து நமக்கு Swaminathan ஃபவுண்டேஷன் கொடுத்த டெக்னாலஜி ட்ரைனிங் வந்து நிறைய பயனாகிருக்கு. நீ பார்த்திங்கன்னா என்னோடய தோட்டத்தில் எல்லாமே மல்ச்சிங் எல்லாம் பண்ணி இன்றைக்கி வந்து ஒரு 1.5 ஏக்கர் விவசாயம் பண்ணியிருக்கான். ஒரு 3 மாதத்துக்கு முன்னாடி பார்த்திங்கன்னா 1 மணி நேரம் தண்ணி ஓடி இருந்துச்சு. அப்போ வந்து 2.5 ஏக்கர் விவசாயம் பண்ணியிருந்தோம். அதுக்கு என்ன காரணம்னா நம்ம தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்ட டெக்னாலஜி. அதாவது ஆண்டாண்டு காலமாக விவசாயம் பண்ணியிருந்தாலும் நம்மளுடைய விவசாய குடும்பமாக இருந்தாலும் டெக்னாலஜி கிடையாது. நம்ம சாமிநாதன் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் வந்த பிற்பாடு நிறைய டெக்னாலஜி நம்மளை இங்கே மட்டும் இல்லை வெளி ஊர்களெல்லாம் கூட்டி காமிச்சிருக்கிறாங்க.
In the Puducherry region, thousands of farmers belonging to 71 farmer producer groups have been organized into the Ilupur Agriculture Producer Company Limited. In areas where water scarcity prevails, like Puducherry, activities undertaken focusing on enhancing irrigation facilities via deepening open wells and creating avenues for sustainable use of water resources. With improved water availability, farmers are now cultivating paddy, groundnut, pulses and vegetables, and even establishing horticulture plantations in rotation on the available land.
இந்திய வானிலைத்துறையின் கனமழை குறித்த எச்சரிக்கை. குறைந்த காற்றழுத்த தாழ்வு நிலையின் காரணமாக தமிழகம் மற்றும் புதுச்சேரியில் அநேக இடங்களில் அடுத்த 5 நாட்களுக்கு பரவலாக இடியுடன் கூடிய கனமழை அல்லது மிக கனமழை பெய்ய வாய்ப்புள்ளது. இந்த தகவலை தங்களுக்கு வழங்கியது மாசா சுவாமிநாதன் ஆராய்ச்சி நிறுவன வானிலை முன்னறிவிப்பு மையம் கன்னிவாடி.
The weather station operating under MSSRF in Kannivadi provides weather forecasts for areas within 30 km radius that is disseminated through social media and news outlets to the farmers, thus insulating them from the ill effects of aberrant weather conditions. The Foundation actively engages in activities that prioritize sustainable management of agrobiodiversity based on the 3 cardinal aspects of attention to economy, ecology, and equity. The work is carried out under the aegis of the Community Agrobiodiversity Centre in Wayanad, Kerala, the Biju Patnaik Medicinal Plants Garden and Research Centre in Koraput, Odisha, and the Community Biodiversity Conservation Program in Kolli Hills, Tamil Nadu.
So in biodiversity, we look at the 2 levels. One is the endangered biodiversity and the other is the community biodiversity. So in the endangered biodiversity, we focused on the rare, endemic and threatened plant species. And in community biodiversity, we have started 2 centers rather. One community Agrobiodiversity center in Kerala and another center in Odisha and one more center in Kolli Hills. So these 3 field level centers, they essentially look into the community biodiversity management.
Wayanad, with its high levels of diversity and endemism, has earned it the status of a global biodiversity hotspot. The region also has the highest tribal population in Kerala state with a percentage of 18.5% as per the last census. The Community Agrobiodiversity Centre of MSSRF was established here in 1997 on land donated by Professor Swaminathan. And the CABC has over the years intervened at multiple levels for the sustainable management of the rich agrobiodiversity of the region.
The idea of conserving biodiversity, particularly in the context of agricultural biodiversity, was ahead of its time. India did not have a Biodiversity Act in place, which of course came later.
The MS Swaminathan Botanic Garden, MSSBG, under the MSSRF Community Agrobiodiversity Centre, CABC, Wayanad, is one of a kind garden located over a sprawling 17 hectares within the CABC campus. The MSSBG is a member garden of Botanical Garden Conservation International and a lead garden recognized by Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, Government of India for the conservation of RET plants.
The beginning is
Community Agrobiodiversity Centre ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി കൺസർവേഷൻ പ്രോഗ്രാം പ്രധാനമായിട്ടും ഊന്നൽ കൊടുക്കുന്നത് സാമൂഹികമായിട്ടും സാമ്പത്തികമായും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ പാരിസ്ഥിതികമായിട്ടും പ്രാധാന്യമുള്ള ജൈവ വൈവിധ്യ ഘടകങ്ങളുടെ പഠനത്തിനും അതിൻ്റെ സസ്റ്റൈനബിൾ യൂട്ടിലൈസേഷനും വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ്. വൈൽഡ് ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ പ്രധാനമായിട്ടും RET പ്ലാന്റ്സ്, അതായത് നിലനിൽപ്പിന് ഭീഷണി നേരിടുന്ന റെയർ, എൻഡമിക് ആൻഡ് ത്രെട്ടൻഡ് പ്ലാന്റ്സിൻ്റെ പഠനത്തിനാണ് കൂടുതൽ നമ്മൾ ഊന്നൽ കൊടുക്കുന്നത്.
Both ex situ conservation and in situ conservation related to farmers' varieties and plant genetic resources and preparation of people's biodiversity register are undertaken.
നമ്മളുടെ ഭൂമിയിൽ നിന്ന് തിരോധാനം ചെയ്യാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ള അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അന്യം വന്നു പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരുപാട് വൃക്ഷങ്ങളായാലും ശരി, ചെറിയ ചെടികളായാലും ശരി, വെള്ളികളായാലും ശരി, അതിനെയൊക്കെ പരിപോഷിപ്പിക്കുന്നുള്ള ഒരു ദൗത്യമായിട്ടും ഒരു പദ്ധതിയായിട്ടും ഇവിടെ വന്നത്. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞതിന് ശേഷം പിന്നെ വന്നത് പിന്നെയും സ്വാമിനാഥൻ ഫൗണ്ടേഷൻ വന്നു. പിന്നെ അതിലൊരു പുണ്യവനം എന്നുള്ളൊരു പദ്ധതി ഇവിടെ നടപ്പാക്കി. ആ പുണ്യവനം പദ്ധതി വളരെ ബൃഹത്തായുള്ളൊരു പദ്ധതിയായിരുന്നു. അതിൽ ഓരോ ആളുകൾക്കും അവരുടേതായുള്ള വൃക്ഷങ്ങൾ കൊടുത്ത് അവർ അതാത് വൃക്ഷങ്ങളെ പരിപോഷിപ്പിക്കുക എന്നുള്ള വലിയൊരു ദൗത്യം, അതായത് ഒരു പീപ്പിൾസ് പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേഷൻ വന്ന ഒരു പദ്ധതിയായിരുന്നു ഈ പുണ്യവനം എന്നുള്ളത്.
In Odisha, MSSRF has been working in Koraput district since the decade of the 1990s and facilitated recognition of the rice farming system in the district as another globally important agriculture heritage site. The ongoing work spans the areas of biodiversity conservation, promotion of sustainable livelihood, establishment of community-managed gene, seed, grain and water banks, promotion of farming system for nutrition, genetic literacy and documentation of local conservation traditions. The Biju Patnaik Medicinal Plants Garden and Research Centre in Jaipur is set up on 4.4 hectares of land contributed by the government of Odisha. The centre has conserved 140 rice land races and 20 millet land races.
আমার দাদা মন নানা মন করতে লাগরে বুনতে রেলাই সেতে বড়কে উনা হইতে রেলা আমি শ্রীপতি কলু আছি দাড়ি দান কলু আছু তেবে তেবে সেটাকে ডৌ লইলানি অনেক বুতে গইছি বলি করি আমি ভাবি করি 3 বছর হইলানি এসুকে আমি লগাই করি আইলুলি বুঝাই দেলাকে শিখলু।
As a partner in the ongoing state-led Odisha Millet Mission to increase area and availability of millets, the interventions of MSSRF in Koraput are targeted at the promotion of large-scale millet cultivation. Millet cultivation and expansion figures as one of the prime areas of intervention under MSSRF's Community Conservation Program in Kolli Hills, in Namakkal district of Tamil Nadu.
A wide range of millets have been cultivated here, like finger millet, different varieties of finger millet, Italian millet, little millet. But at the same time, there are influence of cash crops like cassava or coffee, pepper that has started coming in. So there is a comparative advantage of those crops. So therefore, people were actually moving away from these crops. But from the point of view of local level food and nutrition security as well as climate adaptation, Foundation felt that it has to be a part of their food and their ecosystem.
The activities are carried out under the auspices of the Kolli Hills Agrobiodiversity Conservers Federation, a community-based institution with membership of 500 tribal families. The community conservation approach in agrobiodiversity management promoted by MSSRF.
So we started addressing different issues across the value chain, like conservation related issue and processing related issue, promoting consumption through training and capacity building program, and why not create economic stake for conservation. So we moved on with development of different kinds of value added product and linking with markets and so on. Now the community biodiversity management is a central pillar where it cuts across issues related to conservation, natural resource management, nutrition, community centered nutrition and alleviation of poverty.
Encourages an inclusive economic stake for the sustainable management of agrobiodiversity, following a 4C approach that integrates conservation, cultivation, consumption and commerce. Anticipatory and participatory research have been the two main strands of research under biotechnology at the Foundation. Anticipatory research, in response to challenges posed by climate change and sea level rise, is one component of the work.
The biotechnology program at Foundation aims in harnessing advanced biotechnological tools for sustaining productivity in problematic soils. Especially in the event of climate change, sea level rise is going to happen. This sea level rise is going to salinize most of our productive agricultural land along the coastline. So, as an anticipatory measure, we are trying to develop a saline tolerant transgenic rice variety which can still grow in these saline affected soils and still maintain the yield levels and so on.
Harnessing Information and Communication Technology (ICT) for rural development and bridging the digital divide has been a key element in MSSRF's approach right from the early years.
To connect the community with different programs what we have within Foundation, whether it is nutrition, food security or eco-technology or coastal system research, where we try to integrate and understand their requirements and then bring out technological solutions so that we can facilitate the community to continue their decision making because of the knowledge intervention.
The Jamsetji Tata National Virtual Academy for Rural Prosperity encompasses a network of village resources centers, village knowledge centers on a hub and spokes model, the National Virtual Academy, NVA Fellows and the Grameen Gyan Abhiyan or Village Knowledge Movement.
2004, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, the initiative started under the guidance of Professor MS Swaminathan, our founder chairman, Youth in Agriculture, Youth in Food Security. So in collaboration with the IFRI and WFP, World Food Program, jointly, we got a two international program, how to promote young people in the agriculture sector. This impression is coming good result. We started the Indian Youth Science Congress 2009 as be one of the milestone in the youth program in the foundation. Also all over India, the young people are very huge participation. Last 9 years we have completed 2009 onwards now.
I think Professor had really has a lot of faith that it is each generation, it is the youth and the young people, including the child who has a curious mind, and if we can start developing that curiosity and building on that, that will have good long-term, again sustainable solutions. So one of the programs from this perspective was Every Child a Scientist.
ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ മണ്ണിൽ കാണുന്ന ചില നല്ല കളറുള്ള നല്ല പിഗ്മെന്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള മണ്ണിരകൾക്ക് കമ്പോസ്റ്റിംഗ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള കപ്പാസിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാവും, പക്ഷെ അത് തിരിച്ചറിയാൻ ആരുമില്ല.
The Every Child a Scientist ECAS program started in 2001 at the Community Agrobiodiversity Center in Wayanad and subsequently started in Chennai. Adopts informal, participatory methods of imparting knowledge to the children belonging to marginalized segments of society in the age group of 9 to 16 years. It aims at increasing the knowledge base of tribal and rural children in the areas of biodiversity, environmental issues, and basic health and hygiene. Presently, the program has expanded its scope to impart awareness on climate change and adaptation to children.
As a scientific organization, I think we have a duty to spread scientific knowledge and what Nehru called the scientific temper in India. And one of the ways in which we do it is through having interactions with the media. The Hindu Media Resource Center at the Foundation takes the lead in this in collaboration with all the scientists.
The MSSRF library in Chennai abounds with roughly 20,000 books, countless journals, bounded journals, newspapers, and digital archives.
And we in the future, our program, our aim is to spread out in a pan-India mode, where especially with the vulnerable locations. When we say vulnerable locations, the hotspots of poverty, hotspots of hunger, and also hotspots of biodiversity.
The works of MSSRF span over 31 districts, 452 revenue villages, and around 850 hamlets through centers in 8 states, 3 regional centers, and 20 field centers.
And I think the foundation can be an organization which takes this dialogue forward and which brings relevant science and the latest, whether it's information technology or whether it's biotechnology. The foundation has always believed that the latest in science and technology should be brought to enhance the livelihoods of the rural population.
Through piloting models and action research accompanied by policy advocacy, MSSRF has made its constructive influence bear upon at least 600,000 farm families across its field sites. The foundation, with its legacy of the past 30 years in researching the unreached and making a difference, its team of committed staff members and support of partners, donors, and well-wishers remains committed to its mission of harnessing science for sustainable development.